Well, alright, welcome back to As It Should Be. Paul Bertolino here, and well, it's Johnny's birthday. It's Johnny's birthday. Yeah, I know I already did that for the Paul McCartney video, but I don't know. Now I'm doing it for the John video. Deal with it. But yes, it's John Lennon's birthday, October 9th. John Lennon would be 82 today, and he should be 82 today, damn it, but we're not going to get into that. But what I'm going to do in honor of John Lennon's birthday is that I'm going to rank my top 20 John Lennon songs. Okay, yeah. Now, okay, so I'm going to do basically this on today on the October 9th. I'm going to do my top 20 favorite John Lennon songs, and then on December 8th, I'm going to rank his solo albums. Okay, just spoiler alert, but just to let you know, and let's get right into it. I mean, I don't even need to get into. I mean, it's John Lennon. What am I going to do? Tell you how much John Lennon means to me? If you don't know this, then we have nothing to discuss. So I'm just going to get. Well, also I have 20 songs to go through, so I need to kind of get on it so it doesn't turn into like an hour and a half video. But I do have runners up. Even though it's a 20-song list, I have runners up because I have 3 songs that I really, really wanted to get on the list, but you can only get 20 songs on a 20-song list. So, all right, so my runners-up are New York City, Cold Turkey, and Give Me Some Truth. Yeah, all great songs, all songs that I really love, but everything else on the list just had to be on the list above these. I don't know. But, all right, so let's get into it. Tasty root beer. My number 20. Imagine. Okay, so hear me out, people. Imagine is my number 20. I'm going to tell you this. Imagine almost wasn't on the list at all. Okay? No, yes, it's a great song, but come on, let's be real. This song has been bludgeoned absolutely to the point of no return since December 1980, has it not? Yes, and I know I'm going to get, I can see the comments now, but I'm already reading you haven't even typed yet, and I'm reading your comment. Well, just because a song's played out and you're sick of it doesn't make it any less of a great song. Agreed. But I'm not ranking songs officially and objectively, like what's technically a better song objectively. This is what I prefer, what I like, what I have feelings for, man. What I prefer to listen to, what I rank in my personal heart here, and that is so it really in the end I agree that Imagine is a great song, but that's actually the only thing that got it on the list in the first place. Honestly, I kind of would rather put New York City or Cold Turkey or something on this list over Imagine, but the fact that it really is such an amazing song is what kind of gave it the spot. But that said, I don't ever need to listen to it again. So it's kind of like, you're kind of riding that thing. You're kind of like having this, you're duking it out. I'm really sick of this. Yeah, but it's an amazing classic song. Yeah, but I'm sick of it. And that's really what it comes down to. How do I personally feel about these songs? When a song gets played out, it doesn't make it any less great, but it does color how I perceive it. It does influence whether or not I want to listen to it, how much I still enjoy it. And I just don't enjoy the song nearly as much anymore because it just kind of became a different animal. And that's all I got to say about that. Still a great song. By the way, that we all have to realize by now and give full credit to Yoko, who really wrote those lyrics. John probably wrote some of the I don't really know what the how things divvy up, which lines are John's and which are hers, but a substantial amount of those lyrics are Yoko's, if not all of them. So there's that. Imagine. Okay, it's coming in number 19. Jealous Guy. Yes, I have Jealous Guy all the way down at number 19. This is a very, very well-loved John Lennon song, and rightfully so because it is a great song. it's nowhere near as played out as Imagine, so I don't have it this low because it's played out like Imagine. It didn't take on a different form and a different life and a different meaning after John Lennon died the way Imagine did. But, well, one thing, I just like all the songs above it on the list more, but also, as much as I recognize the greatness of the song and how well written it is, the great melody, the beautiful melody, the great lyrics, the great performance, I just don't love it more than number 19 on this list. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. I don't think I love it as much as most people do. But again, kind of like Imagine, I am kind of taking into consideration the objective greatness of the song and kind of putting it in there anyway. And it's easily one of Lennon's most covered songs. I mean, we have Imagine and stuff, but I mean, one of his most covered solo songs by far. I mean, obviously there's Brian Ferry who did that. Any number of people. There's 1,000 people who've done covers of Jealous Guy, and none of them are anywhere near as good as John's. And I still have John's at number 19. What are you going to do? Okay, so coming to number 18 is Beautiful Boy, Darling Boy. Yeah, now this is from the final John Lennon album, final album of his lifetime, Double Fantasy, as you all know. And, and it's a song, of course, that he wrote about his son, Sean. And generally, I tend to not be a fan of songs people write about their kids. They tend to be just kind of, I kind of tend to be kind of a little like about them. But there are some that I really love. This one is amazing. Sarah by Thin Lizzy, incredible. And of course, Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder is a great song. I prefer the single mix that doesn't have the baby crying on it, but but it's a great song. But there's a lot of really awful ones out there. This one is so far from awful it can't even be described. This one is amazing, and the thing is that I think the thing about this that's great about this is that you can really hear how John feels in this track, just in the performance and in the words. And one of the most heartbreaking things about it is like hearing like the line where he says, "I can hardly wait to see you come of age, but it's a long way to go. We're just both going to have to be patient." And considering everything. And there's this really great video on YouTube from around the time, around probably early in 81 maybe, but after John was killed, but kind of roughly in that period, where McCartney is being interviewed. He's in a really kind of a dark, it's really shadowy and dark and everything. I don't remember exactly the situation, but I think McCartney was being interviewed, and he's discussing John, and he pulls up this song, and he plays a little of it, and he just plays the song, and just sits and listens, and just starts crying. Like he's not meaning to cry. He's like trying really hard not to cry. And you could see him kind of like trying to hold it in, but it's just not. It's not working. He's just, his eyes are getting puffy and red and glossy, and he's just like, and it's kind of really, kind of weird to be able to actually see McCartney be emotional. About anything, but about Lennon's death or anything, because McCartney always puts on the wrinkly dinkly doo. Oh, it was great, it was great, He always puts that shit on, and he never like gets real with you. And that's like this really like incredible real moment. That's like, wow, I can't believe I get to see this, But all of that's aside, this is an amazing song, and it deserves to be on the list, and it deserves to be above Jealous Guy and Imagine, in my opinion. All right. Coming in at number 17 is How Do You Sleep? Yeah, this is from most people's favorite John Lennon album, Imagine, from 1971. And, of course, this is the legendary track where John basically lyrically skewers McCartney. Because they sat around there in the studio, Yoko and him and whoever else was around, and came up with the nastiest lines they could possibly come up with and wrote the lyrics for the song. And, because there was a lot of bitchiness going around between him and McCartney, and they started writing lyrics jabbing at one another. And Lennon, of course, is going to, of course, take he's going to, like, completely sucker punch. He's just going to go, like, the hardest on it, right? And write this entire song that's so clearly just venomous. Now, I really liked the track a lot. I liked the song, I liked the track, but I never really liked the way it was produced. There's something about, I don't like the strings on it, but, you know, there was that reissue that came out just a few years ago, like the Ultimate Mix reissue with like 10,000 mixes and versions of the album, of all the songs in the album and the bonus tracks. And then they have a raw one of this with has no strings, and when I listen to it, it's like, well, shit, without the strings, now it sounds like it's missing something. So I don't know what the song needs, but I almost feel like, oh, too bad, you know, George Martin couldn't been there to turn this into something really great. Because I do really like the song, I just don't know if I've ever really heard a really good, a mix that I really like, or an arrangement of it that I really like. I just like, but I do like the track. I do like the track, and I really like the guitar sound on it. It's like it's a little subtly rocking, but you know, I really like that riff, but it gets really buried under the strings, and but you know, but it's still a great track, even though John's being a bully and unnecessarily petulantly going at Paul, but I still like the track. Okay, so number 16 is Aisumisen, I'm Sorry. And this is from the 1973 album Mind Games. One of really only two songs, spoiler alert, one of only two songs I have from that album on this list, because that album, I like it a lot, but it tends to be a little, I don't know, there aren't a lot of real standouts on this album, let's just put it that way, but I'll talk about that in more detail when I do the album ranking in December, but I do really love this song. I always assumed Aisumisen meant I'm sorry in Japanese, and clearly that's what it's meant to be, right? And clearly that's what John meant, and I thought, but earlier today I was looking at this list and I thought, I want to, just for the hell of it, I'm going to cut and paste Aisumisen into Google Translate and see what it gives me. Under Japanese, Aisumisen. Under English, it gives me no ice cream. So according to Google Translate, Aisumisen means no ice cream. So I don't know, maybe it's an apology to Yoko from John because there was no ice cream left? Maybe he was really hungry the night before, she had a major craving for ice cream, and he's like, oh god, I'm sorry, Yoko, but I ate all the ice cream, there's none left. I don't know, but all I do know is that apparently from what I've read, it's not really quite proper, and I decided to do kind of further research on this because I'm thinking, well, what's the deal here? So I looked it up, and I found a comment on the subject from some rando on the internet. But this rando actually apparently has a master's in journalism, so I'm going to take his word for it, and I'm going to read what he wrote, okay? Because this, assuming that he's correct on all this, it's very enlightening. He writes, it's fairly obvious from the full title, Aisumisen, I'm Sorry, that Lennon meant this to mean I'm sorry in Japanese. It is close, but not very accurate. The standard term for apology in Japan is sumimasen. There's an older formal term for the same, which would be aisumimasen. Notice the extra me in there that is missing from John's attempt. And when speaking rapidly, Japanese might sound like they are saying sumasen or alternatively aisumasen, which is presumably where Lennon got this. And that would make sense because he probably didn't look it up or whatever. He didn't have the internet to go to. He probably heard the word spoken and probably misinterpreted what the word was and didn't ask. And that makes a lot of sense. And then the guy writes, why he didn't double check with his Japanese wife is odd, but I imagine it could be the fact that the song was aimed at her as an apology and he wanted it as a surprise. Well, Masters in Journalism guy, the reason for that is because John recorded this song right at the beginning of the Lost Weekend, and he was estranged from his wife. Now, that would mean that he probably wrote the song a little earlier, possibly when he and Yoko hadn't yet separated, but originally the song had been written as a song called Call My Name. Is that right? I had it written down somewhere. I don't know. I think it was called Call My Name was the original title for it, and had different lyrics, and then he rewrote them later, and I think he probably rewrote the lyrics and changed it to Aisumisen after they had become estranged. So I'm pretty sure that had he written that song and she was around, she would have been privy to it, and certainly she would have corrected him. So there's that. But that said, it's a really great ballad. Like I said, one of my favorite songs on the album. People are going to question that I'm putting this above Jealous Guy, but, no accounting for taste. All right. Okay, so coming to number 15 is I Found Out. Yeah, from the 1970 album Plastic Ono Band, the first proper John Lennon solo album post-Beatles. And, this is such a great, just rocking, just like straight ahead, just raw and rickety rock and roll guitar rock track from John. It's like, and this whole album was done as a power trio with John, Ringo, with Klaus Vormann on bass, and they're just smoking on this record, and particularly on this track. And this is one of those tracks, kind of like Cold Turkey, where he has that sort of John style riff that McCartney was kind of aping for Let Me Roll It. This is one of those types of songs, and this is just a really just kind of like bearing the soul, raw rock and roll song, and from a really great album. I mean, if you haven't listened to any of these Lennon albums, that one is definitely probably the one out of all of them that may surprise you the most, because it's really just stark, and it's amazing, and this track is amazing. I Found Out. Okay, so coming in number 14 is Scared. Yeah, from the 1974 Walls and Bridges album. Man, what a great album Walls and Bridges is, and this is a great track from that album. Now, Scared, this was definitely, Lennon was like in the thick of his Lost Weekend when he wrote these songs and when he recorded this album. And Scared, of course, is, the thing is that Lennon was always really good about putting on a brave face, pretending he was tough and pretending that he had everything under control, but he really was. He was frightened a lot, and he really had. He had so much complicated shit going on inside of him, and at this point, he's basically dealing with his separation from Yoko, and not really feeling grounded, because he's just kind of out in L.A. just fucking around, not really knowing what he's doing, and partying and getting wasted every day and every night, and kind of spiraling downward, and he doesn't really know what's going on or what he's going to do or where things are going to go. Yeah, and he's just kind of like, I think he was scared of losing Yoko forever. He was scared of where he might go if he lost her. I mean, this is definitely him bearing his soul, not unlike he did on Plastic Ono Band, but with less of a, raw production. Now, this track is kind of like a slow but kind of heavy-hitting blues kind of rhythm, and it just has a really great kind of vibe to it, and that has that warm 70s kind of sound to it that I love so much. And it's the last song on side 1, I believe, right? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, but Scared. A very underappreciated dark horse of a track from what I consider an underappreciated dark horse of a John Lennon album. Okay, so number 13 is God. Yeah, God, the epic closer. Well, My Mummy's Dead is technically the closer. I don't need to hear about that in the comments. But really, as far as proper songs go on the album, this is the big epic closer of the Plastic Ono Band album, and the entire album, John is basically bearing his soul, and it's one of the most personal albums really that you're ever going to hear. And then this last song is like this gospel-y, almost stream of consciousness sounding track with Billy Preston on piano, augmenting the Lennon, Ringo, and Klaus Vormann band, where Lennon just kind of like, basically just kind of like take shots at everything, like, God is a concept by which we measure our pain, and then goes into this chant of, I don't believe in this and this, I don't believe in all of these sacred cows, I don't believe in Jesus, and it just escalates and escalates. I don't believe in Dylan, until of course finally he gets to the big revelation, the big heartbreaking gut punch of all, I don't believe in Beatles. And yeah, and it's really, the song is really kind of intense, because not only does the chant section escalates and becomes more intense as it goes on, which culminates in him revealing that he doesn't believe in Beatles. But then it gives way to this section where he just kind of says, look, The dream is over. Like, the Beatles are over. Deal with it. Is really how that record ends, with him just saying, yes, the Beatles really have broken up. No, we're not getting back together. This is over. Deal with it. That's how this record ends, and it's like, whew. And it's really just like, wow, okay. And it's an amazing track. It's really an amazing track and a heartbreaking track at the same time. And I have it at number 13, God. Okay, so number 12, Mother. Now, Mother is the opening track of the Plastic Ono Band album. So that album is bookended with Mother and God. Yeah, I know, my mommy's dead. Shut up. But, yeah, and Mother, talk about just a devastating and personal as all hell track. I mean, it's about the fact that he was abandoned. For all intents, he was completely abandoned by his father and essentially abandoned by his mother. She didn't completely abandon him. She was still in his life, but basically she kind of like gave him over to her sister, to his auntie Mimi, who raised him. And he always kind of just, he felt abandoned, and he felt like, how does a kid feel when this happens? And that is the kind of stuff that happens to a kid and turns him into the kind of complicated person that John Lennon was. And this is just Lennon basically, Lennon's inner child just basically crying out for both of his parents not to leave him. Mother don't go, Mama don't go, Daddy come home. And it's a really, really, really heartbreaking track, and it gets especially intense at the end, where Lennon just starts screaming out the Mama don't go, Daddy come home part, and it's just, it's really, really, really. It's really intense, and it can be really kind of emotional. If you're in the right state of mind and you listen to that song, it can be just like, oh, God. I mean, even though I've heard it a million times, if I sit and I really just intently listen to that track, I can get really caught up in it. It's really an intense track, and it's an amazing song. Now, as I've mentioned, the band on this record is John on guitar, Ringo on drums, and Klaus Voormann on bass. But according to the credits, they were augmented on this track by Yoko, who plays wind. Yeah, she is the windist on this record, the lead wind, perhaps. I guess, I mean, few know that Yoko was an accomplished windist, and you see, she stumbled upon this hidden talent one night when John and they went and, right before they went into the studio to record the song, they'd gone and had some Mexican food, see. And, thus basically obliging Yoko to play wind in the studio, unbeknownst to anybody and unexpectedly. But, it was a very aromatic instrument, and she excelled at it. And, yes. And it appears on this great track, Mother. Okay, it's coming to number 11 is Oh My Love from the Imagine album. Now, this is one of, in my opinion, one of John's greatest ballads, and definitely one of his most beautiful ballads. And I obviously, considering its ranking, I prefer it over Jealous Guy, and I See Sin for that matter. But it's just such a it's so gentle. Like, it's one of those tracks that's just so like you feel like you could crush it if you just like look at it too hard. It's just so and it's really, really amazing song. Oddly, I mean, we all know the song, so I mean, I guess I don't really need to go into a big thing describing it or whatever, but it's definitely one of my favorites on that album. But one of the things I find really odd about this track that I don't know, maybe not everybody knows, you would have had to have seen this movie, but there's a movie called Little Darlings, starring Matt Dillon and Christy McNichol, and it's from, 1979 or 80 or something like that, maybe 81, early 80s. And this song is used in that film. And I remember seeing the movie and hearing this song, and this was before I believe this was probably just before I had the Imagine album. And I actually only just remembered that song was even in that movie. It's just such an odd, weird little thing. I mean, if you haven't seen Little Darlings and you go watch it, it kind of comes up and you're like, oh my Oh My Love from Imagine is in this movie? Yeah, well, it is. It's playing when, if I recall, I haven't seen this movie in decades, but Christy McNichol and Matt Dillon, are, getting a little intimate, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I recall. Anyway, so to the strains of Oh My Love by John Lennon. But what an amazing song. And it's my number 11, Oh My Love. Okay, so coming in number 10 is another very gentle little ballad, and another one of my very favorite ballads by Lennon. And it's a song called Look at Me from the Plastic Ono Band album. Now, this is a very, very, very White Album-ish kind of track. It's one of, Lennon's sort of, he does that Dear Prudence type of picking style on this, that Donovan apparently claims to have taught him. He probably did, I don't know. But, of course, the reason why this sounds like a White Album era song is because that's when he wrote the song. It just, he had so many songs at that time, not everything could make the White Album, and yeah, this is one of those songs that kind of dates back from that period, and it fits really nicely on the Plastic Ono Band album. I mean, it really goes really well with the whole vibe of that album, but it also, it's screaming to be on the White Album. I mean, I almost feel like I love Revolution 9. I actually like Revolution 9, and I actually get it now, whereas I didn't when I was a kid. But I do kind of feel like maybe if that wasn't there, we could have had maybe Look at Me and, I don't know, Sour Milk Sea or something. Like, you could have 2 or 3 other really great songs on that record in that space. But whatever. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Oh My Love. Look at Me. Look at Me is number 10, and it is a great song. Okay, so number 9 is Isolation. Yeah, also from the Plastic Ono Band album. I have a lot of songs from the Plastic Ono Band album on here. What are you going to do? These are the songs I love. But Isolation is the side 1 closer. It's the last track on side 1. And it's, John feeling the weight of all the criticism that he and Yoko were getting from every angle around that time. And, it's a very stark and dry and bare bones kind of a track that really kind of stands tall in the strength of the performance and the song itself, really. And I could almost kind of imagine this, as it were, being a Beatles track. Because, I don't know, there's something about Lennon's voice on that. I feel like after the Beatles broke up, I feel like their voices changed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like George on All Things Must Pass, his voice sounds a little different. It doesn't sound like Beatle George. I feel like Paul kind of did the same thing, and John kind of did too. But here and there, you get glimpses. And I feel like This is John's Beatle John voice on this, especially on the double track parts. I don't expect you to understand. The victim of the insane, like that. That's the very sound of Beatle John's voice. So there's just a little bit of it, kind of, a little bit of the straggler there that's coming through. But what a great song, and great album, and Isolation. Okay, so number 8. Coming in number 8 is Going Down on Love. Yeah, this is the opening track from the Walls and Bridges album. And this is one of John's most overtly 70s tracks. Definitely his most overtly 70s album. But I think, Lennon's most overtly 70s track is easily Whatever Gets You Through the Night. I mean, that oozes 70s. But this is number 2. This is right behind it. Bongos and the really warm sound. And I remember I actually remember when I heard the song for the first time. I didn't have the album yet. This would have been sometime in the early 80s. I remember being in the car with my mom, and I don't know where we were going. She was driving. I was in the passenger seat, and we were listening to the radio, and they played this track. And I remember, for some reason, I didn't have Walls and Bridges yet, and I didn't really have a lot of the albums yet. I had Shaved Fish, I think, and maybe Imagine or something like that. But maybe I probably had Plastic Ono Band, but I didn't have Walls and Bridges yet. And I was hearing this track for the first time, and I remember it sounding really disco-y to me. My perception of it at the time was that it was really disco-y. It's definitely not disco-y. It's just kind of, people have a tendency, there's a particular 70s vibe that people kind of confused with disco. I mean, there is a little bit of a light funkiness to it, but it's not disco. but it has bongos and a little bit of a, it's just a light, like I said, like a light funky vibe to it, but it's like a really great opener to a really great underrated Lennon album, Going Down on Love. Okay, so coming in number 7 is Hold On. Yeah, Hold On is track number 2 on the Plastic Ono Band album. And, this is a period, I think, where John was really he was more concerned with what he wanted to say than with the songs themselves. He was kind of willing to sacrifice the song to get what he wanted to say across. And I think this is a really great song, it's very short, it's very to the point, and he just kind of like, there's no bridge, there's no solo, there's no outro. He just kind of like, it's a minute and a half of a song of him saying what he has to say, gets in, and he gets out. I have it this high, though, because I really love this track. This is another one of those tracks where I hear Beatle John. That's Beatle John's voice. That's late pure, that's White Album, / Abbey Road kind of era Lennon vocal right there. And there's something about this short, simple, yet effective track that I really love. And Hold On, John, from Plastic Ono Band. Great track. Because coming in at number 6 is Mind Games. Yeah, the title track from the 1973 Mind Games, and it's the opening track from that album. Now this is, I think of this as kind of like, it's like the polar opposite of a track like Isolation, where, that track is just no production, stark, all song and lyrics. Like, you know what I mean? This is one of those tracks that's kind of like McCartney's Let 'Em In, where there really isn't that much of a song there. It's really all about the production and the arrangement and the sonic sort of quality of the track. The feel and the production. I mean, I really love this track, but the song itself is really kind of repetitive. But I really love it a lot. It's really one of my very favorite 70s Lennon singles. And it's really, again, because I just like the feel and the vibe of it. And, the lyrics are perfectly good. They're not bad. I mean, they're not, it's just, I feel like that's not what propels the song forward. I mean, it's really, it's just the production and the vibe that puts it over the top for me personally. Not more so than lyrically, in my opinion. But man, what a great track. And there's a really great video that he made at the time of him running around, just kind of like cruising around Central Park with fans coming up to him and freaking out, and him Pied Pipering through Central Park while the song plays, looking really, just really cool with a big black hat, all black long coat, and just basically looking like the god that he was, and Mind Games, great song from a pretty good album. Okay, it's coming in number 5, Instant Karma. Yeah. Ooh. An early solo Lennon single that isn't on any of his albums. It's on Shaved Fish, but Shaved Fish is like it's a singles compilation. It's not on any of his proper albums. And what a great track. I mean, talk about a Lennon solo track that's crying out to be a Beatles track. Oh, God, could you imagine? But this is also probably one of my very favorite tracks that Phil worked on. Phil Spector. Like, I think Phil Spector's production works probably the best on this track out of anything that he did with John. I really like, well, I guess in a way I like what he did with Plastic Ono Band, because what he did on that album was stay the fuck out of the way, and that's what makes that record work so well. But this Instant Karma, he really comes in and does his thing on this, and I think it really works nicely. It's a great track. It's not only is it a great song, but it's a great vocal from John, and it's just really nice, bouncy, exuberant kind of John track, and it's one of his all-time greats, and I have it at, I forgot, number 5, Instant Karma. Okay, it's coming in number 4, Bless You. Yeah, Bless You. Dark horse track from the Walls and Bridges album. I think most people probably I feel like most people don't take notice of this track. I love this one so much. I mean, Jesus, I have it at number 4 on this list. Love this track. I mean, it just has that, it's like, it just has that relaxed, chill kind of 70s vibe. and the warmth and all that kind of stuff. And and it's basically, you could just imagine, this is again while John was in the thick of his Lost Weekend, and you can imagine he's basically lying there in bed with May Pang lying next to him. She's probably sleeping, and he's lying there just wondering where Yoko is at that moment and what is happening with her, and wishing the best for her and hoping that she's okay and that everything's working out, and and obviously pining away for her, but just like having good, positive sort of thoughts about her and about where things are. He's probably having kind of maybe a little bit of a moment of clarity. He probably wasn't drunk when he wrote the song, but it's just a really nice, chill, beautiful track that I absolutely adore. One of my favorite, my number 4 track of John Lennon's solo career. There you go. Bless you. Okay, so coming to number 3 is a song that I think should be even higher than it is on the list, but these top 2 you can't beat. But anyway, this is Watching the Wheels. Oh, Watching the Wheels from the Double Fantasy album, opening track on side 2. What a song. What a song. This is, I think by far the strongest pop song that John wrote after the Beatles. I mean, you could argue that Instant Karma is that song. They're kind of going like this, but man, this, if it's not Instant Karma, it's definitely this one. A great, simple, direct, just early 80s pop song that just sounds so good. The lyrics are so great. I mean, John, of course, dropped out in 75 and didn't do anything for 5 years, and this is a song about what he encountered with people whenever he was usually at home. He didn't get out, he didn't go to parties and stuff, but when he did run into people, and they would be like, so what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't you miss, like, being John Lennon, getting out there and making records and, being the star that you are? And he's like going, no, I'm doing just fine. I'm doing just fine hanging out with my son and my wife and just like being at home and not being constantly on tour, not constantly having to make records and not constantly having to do interviews and stuff. He was really kind of enjoying that for a while. And people, obviously, it's difficult for people like us who've never lived that life, who've never been John Lennon, to imagine, why would you want to give that up? And he's like, well, whatever. It's all right. Great song. Great song. Watching the Wheels. Okay, so coming in number 2, Number 9 Dream. Oh, Number 9 Dream. This opening track on side 2 of Walls and Bridges. What a track. What a song. What a track. Oh my God. This is, it kind of has the 60s dreaminess, of the John 60s dreaminess, sort of combined with the 70s warmth. And it's just such an amazing production. I mean, Lennon produced this track in this album himself. Did an incredible job on this. And this is a song that just completely takes you somewhere. I mean, this is a song that you got to sit and listen to and go along on the ride with John. Like, he's taking you somewhere, sit back and enjoy it. Go along with him. I just love this song. Everything about it. Everything about just like the sound of his voice and the sound of just the dreaminess. I love the dreaminess. I'm a sucker for the dreaminess. And a song called Number 9 Dream, obviously it's going to be dreamy, right? Yeah, but I'm always wanting to say that this is my very favorite Lennon solo track, but it's impossible for me to say that because of my number 1 song, my actual number 1 song that cannot be denied. This is Glasses Off. Woman. Yes, Woman is my number 1 favorite solo John Lennon track. Easily. Well, I mean, I say easily. Number 9 Dream I love so much, and it's right up there, but man, Woman, there's no question that it's number 1. Now, this is Beatle John in 1980, if you could imagine, and he said as much himself. I mean, you go to the interviews that he did in 1980, he basically says, yeah, this is my Beatles track, my modern Beatles track. Yeah, if the Beatles had made a record in 1980, this would be one of the tracks, and it would be one of the best songs in the album, I'm sure. It's an incredible track. I mean, I can't say enough about it. I mean, we've all heard the song, and of course it became a single after he died and became number one. I really would love to know what would have become of this track had he lived and they put it out as a single. Would it have been a huge hit? Because it was a giant hit again in the wake of his death, but of course, you know, the album was too, and Watching the Wheels was as well. But that doesn't, you know, it kind of doesn't count. I would love to know how this absolutely gorgeous, incredible, best Lennon song of his solo career would have done if it had come out and charted and met a public that didn't love it just because he died. Had he lived, how would it have done? Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? But I do know that I definitely remember. Obviously, I remember this whole time. You know, I was 11. I turned 11, actually, the day John Lennon was killed. Yes, my birthday is December 8th. Yes, John Lennon was killed on my 11th birthday. And, so, yeah, I mean, it was weird. Like, it was one of those moments where just, like, everything fucking just, like, wham! Just changed. Everything just changed at that very moment. And, yeah, it was a really odd time. But it's not an odd song. It's a beautiful song, and it's oh my god, you know, the little arpeggio, the light arpeggio guitar, you know, the harmonies and John's voice and the damn song, an incredible song. I can't love it enough. Woman comes in at number one. All right, so there you go. There's my top 20 favorite solo John Lennon tracks, songs, tracks, whatever you want to call it. And as I said at the beginning of this video, I'm going to rank the Lennon albums, solo albums, in December. You know what date that's coming out. And yeah, so anyway, thank you to everybody who watches these videos. Thank you to everybody who subscribes. But if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And if you do subscribe, click the little bell because you're going to want notifications. Unless you don't want notifications, but I think you're going to want notifications because there's no reason to subscribe if you don't want to be notified. But, you know, do subscribe. Anyway, we'll be seeing you later on this week on Thursday because Crystal Durant and Tommy Von Voigt are going to be back, and we are going to be counting down our top 10 favorite singles of 1979. Yeah, Singles of the Year is going to be back on Thursday, and get ready for that. We're going to be closing out the 70s, and, you know, it was inevitable. All right, so everybody, thank you very much, and I will see you soon.